What's up, Hawks fans? Asa Newell here. I'm super blessed for the opportunity to play for a great organization. I can't wait to get to work.
Welcome in, Hawks fans. This is your boy Bryce Lewis back at it again for another Believe in Hawks episode. Draft night edition. The Atlanta Hawks have completed their first round draft. One selection made tonight, but a big trade that could end up going the Hawks' way in 1 year, potentially putting them back in the lottery, depending on how it goes with the Pelicans and the Bucks. I appreciate you guys tuning in to Believe in Hawks for this draft edition. And obviously, we're going to break down the pick. We're going to talk about the trade. We're going to talk about the plan the Hawks have seemed to exhibit so far early in the offseason as free agency is looming, and it will be on Sunday when teams can start to negotiate with other free agents. Hawks have some exceptions they want to use. A lot of big things are happening right now in Atlanta. A lot of people are excited and keeping an eye on the Hawks as they're kind of the league's big wild card team as of right now with some of the moves they made. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you enjoyed the episode, subscribe to the channel, like the video. Audio listeners, please leave a 5-star rating so more people can see this podcast and hear this podcast as it can extend the reach of the podcast and help your brother out. So I appreciate all y'all for tuning in for this episode. So let's get into it. So Hawks tonight started with the 13th pick, right? They had 13 and 22. The big news, they traded for Kristaps Porzingis. They traded the 22nd pick to Brooklyn. So now you only had 13. You come into this draft, some players, Colin Murray Boyles, Millowatch got drafted before 13. Some people you start to see Hawks should look at trading down. What the Hawks do, they trade down. But the New Orleans Pelicans, some people look at this trade potentially as a fleece. The Hawks in that trade were able to get the New Orleans Pelicans' first-round unprotected pick next year. And the reason why this trade was so big is because a lot of people don't think the Pelicans are going to be that good like next year. And the other side of that pick is it also is the worst out of two teams, Pelicans and also the Bucks. So the Bucks have a bad year. The Hawks could get that pick and still get a lottery pick in a draft class that a lot of people consider loaded next year. So a lot of people feel like the Hawks fleeced the Pelicans in that regard, because technically the Pelicans just moved up 10 spots to draft Derek Queen. Hawks move back, get a first-round pick next year that has potentially very high upside value, and now you're still able in a draft like this where they pretty much say after that first tier, it's kind of flat, where you're pretty much getting players in the same category all the way from like 10 to like 28. Hawks still have their pick of the litter. Hawks still could get a guy that they wanted at that pick, right? So a lot of people were happy about that trade. They felt like this was a good move, getting that first round pick for next year with a team that could be bad, or the Bucks could be bad, or whatever the expectation is for those teams. And then, like I said, just an extra asset as well. Now let's get into the pick. So the Hawks did pick at 23. And obviously the big thing coming into this night, a lot of people had all these different names. We've talked about it here on the podcast with different people who came onto the show. There's a lot of different people that people had interest in when the Hawks were picking. But there were also some names that some people were kind of iffy on. And with the 23rd pick in the draft, the Hawks took Asa Newell. And that pick, I'll say this, that pick at that spot was good value. Like at 13, I would have thought that was too rich to take him. But at 23, I think the value for the player was right. So I don't think that the value was wrong. I think that obviously if you are a person who has really digged into college tape, if you've watched players, you're going to have your favorites. You're going to have people that you like. But Asa Newell is now a new Atlanta Hawk. Local kid, grew up in Georgia. She said he was a Kyle Korver fan, had Kyle Korver jersey, played at Georgia. So for him, this is like the hometown kid staying at home, playing for the team he wanted to play for. You know, and I said this on Twitter. I said, Asia's a guy who is high energy, rebounds, defends, alley-oop guy, can jump, athletic, like all of those things. His big issue is that he doesn't really have much of an offensive bag. Doesn't really have ball skills. He has some shooting potential, but that may be something that takes a few years. But outside of that, it's not like he's like a post player or anything like that. And I think that's where Hawks fans are split on him, because I think people are thinking we could have maybe got a better 3-and-D guy or a shooter because we need shooting, or maybe someone who could create, and all of those things. Here's one thing I also have to point out to people. The draft is for free agency in the NBA. You're not going to fill every need in the draft. The Hawks only had one pick tonight. There was going to be a need unfilled tonight. You clearly can see with the draft strategy and with just the strategy in general these last few days. After coming through a year where you had to play Barlow big minutes, Gay big minutes, Man at the 4, Niang at the 4, they said, we can't do that again. We cannot do that again if we're going to take the next step. So Man and Niang were shipped out in the Porzingis trade. And now Barlow, I think, had a non-guaranteed second year. And et cetera, right? You've added Kristaps Porzingis, 7'2", 7'3". Asa Newell, 6'11". Jalen Johnson is like 6'9", 6'10". You've added a ton of size to that front court. In Mo Gay, he's also like 6'11". So they clearly said, we need to get bigger. And they've gotten bigger by these moves. Asa Newell fits into what they're doing there. They're getting bigger. And I think for the way they play, think about the Hawks and how they play. They play a fast-paced, up-tempo. They want to go fast. They want to run. That is where Asia excels. So in terms of that, it fits. And then defender, rebounder, all of that works. The thing for him is he is a project offensively. Now, some people are going to sit here and say, I don't see him ever becoming an offensive guy, right? And here's the thing you got to think about, guys. He's the 23rd pick. So it's not like the Hawks drafted him to become a starter for them. If he's going to be the backup forward, Jalen Johnson's going to be there for the next 4 or 5 years and maybe beyond that. So it's not like even Asia has this path to become a starter here, realistically, because I don't see them moving him to center. If anything, he may play spot minutes there during his career. And I think the Hawks honestly just looked at this at him and said, listen, we're going to develop this guy. We're going to work with him. We think the way we play, he can help us early, but also there's not a ton of pressure on him to be like the big. We need 20 and 10 from you. I think they're cool with Asa Newell playing 10 to 15 minutes a night, blocking shots, getting rebounds, alley-oops, fast break dunks. And they are fine with that. And then with him not having such a big role, because the one thing you also have to think about is role definition. They're not asking Asa Newell to be some game-changing player. They feel like we can allow him to play to his strengths, but at the same time, while he's playing to his strengths, we can work on the other aspects. We've talked about, as Quinn's been there, how they've developed so many guys offensively, how they've improved guys offensively, especially shooting. They've worked with guys on their shot. Asia will be another guy that they'll probably put Kyle Korver with. Hey, you need to work on your shot, because obviously you want the threat. And I said this too. I don't think Asa Newell is guaranteed to be backup 4. Mo Gay has a say in that building. You can essentially say him and Mo Gay right now are like on the same level, because what are their strengths? Rebounding and defense. What are their weaknesses? Offense. What do they both need to improve? Shooting. The only difference is that Mo Gay actually has NBA experience. But if you think about both players, Mo Gay, you maybe would say, was more raw than Asia coming out, even though they're both raw players. And obviously, Asia's played basketball longer than Gay. So Sule clearly was like, we got size, we got rebounding, we got defense. Remember, Kristaps Porzingis, he's a shooter. So now at least 3 out of 4 of your bigs can shoot. Okongwu can shoot. Kristaps can shoot. And I'm not saying like elite shooters. I'm just saying has the ability to hit the 3 ball. And then Jalen can shoot. And then you work with Gay and you work with Asia on trying to create a shot and try to get a shot. But at the same time, like I said, with Asia, you let him play to his strengths, right? So like I said, they know this is going to be a bit of a development. And I think, again, when you're thinking about this team trying to win games, you always think development is like, we don't have time to wait 3 or 4 years. Again, they got him with the 23rd pick, guys. He was not – see, the 13th pick, it's like, all right, you're kind of expecting a lottery pick to be able to contribute, maybe play a bit of a bigger role. 23rd pick, honestly, I don't know if they're going to put him in G League at all this year. Maybe. I don't think so. We'll see as we get closer to camp and how the rest of the roster fills out. But, overall, I think that the pick was fine. I think for the value that they got at 23, I think Asia was a good pick. And I'm excited to see him. I'm excited to see him work. I want to see him. Obviously, Summer League's going to be when we were able to watch him play. I don't know if the Hawks are going to buy a second-round pick tomorrow to try to get back into the draft. I don't know if that's something they care for. I don't know if they're just done. We'll have to see. But, I know Asia is going to be a guy who people are going to be split on. Because like I said, his strengths is he plays super hard, hustles, ridiculous athlete, a competitor. He's definitely a guy and say, he can do a lot of the little things. He can do a lot of the little things. He's a player that I think it's easy to say right now, what does he bring to you? But then when you see him play, and like I said, especially with the role that they're going to have him in and what they're wanting from him, I think we're going to be like, oh, okay. I think Asia may grow on a lot of people. Because I know there's some people who are not high on him at all. And I get that. But at the end of the day, with every pick in the draft, you can be high on a guy or low on a guy. But if a guy comes in and is able to provide for the team some things that they need, then what's the issue? Because, people are coming out of this like, oh, we didn't get any ball creation or anything like that. And I'm like, guys, free agency hasn't happened yet. The Hawks can still address those issues Sunday, going into next week. Right? And that's kind of the next part of this conversation. Like, what is the Hawks plan going into next week or going into Sunday? Obviously, we know backcourt is the big need right now, right? Obviously, signing Karis LeVert will be probably your big in-house assignment. We've heard about Nickeil Walker-Alexander being on their radar, a guy that they would like to acquire with one of the exceptions. Obviously, he would probably fill that backup 3 spot behind Zach, right? If let's say that's the 2 guys, right, that you sign. Now your top 9 is Trey, Dyson, Zach, Jalen, Porzingis, Okongwu, Asa Newell, LeVert, Nickeil Walker-Alexander. Why do I keep saying Nickeil Walker? Nickeil Alexander-Walker. That's a pretty good that's a pretty good 9. That's a pretty good 9. Like, I think we all can, that's a pretty solid 9. And then your biggest question is what you do at point guard. I think that's obviously something that a lot of people are going to look at. What do you do with Kobe Buffkin? Do you believe in Kobe Buffkin? Do you go and sign a guy? There's going to be some guys available that you can potentially go and sign, that you could potentially go and, pick up at that spot. Because like I said, we've only heard some initial plans. We don't know if they're actually going to get Walker. We don't know if they're actually going to be able to re-sign LeVert. That's just something that we know that they want to do. But one thing I can say is that I'm very happy with the way Sule has handled things. Because I said this earlier on Twitter as well. You can follow me there, Bryce_2K. He clearly had a plan. And I said that was my biggest criticism of Landry Fields. It felt like he would go into these off seasons and you didn't know what the Hawks were doing. It felt like they were just doing something. Like obviously, I think with last year, I think was the first time you started to see a blueprint of a plan. But you didn't know what their intentions were. You didn't know what they wanted to do. You had all these trade exceptions. They weren't doing anything with them. And you're like, what are we doing? Sule came in here and said, listen, we're using these exceptions. We're using these assets. We are going to make this team better. And I will never forget people forget this. When Mark Stein reported about the president of basketball operations, a lot of people were obsessed with, oh, they're going to trade the core and get a star. In his post, he specifically said that the Hawks wanted to build around this core. And that's essentially what they're doing. And especially after watching a finals where you saw two teams who could go 10, 11 deep, clearly having deepness, depth is very important. And the Hawks are trying to build that out. And Sule has came in here with a plan. He's executed a plan. I mean, that's why so many people were raving about the fact that the Hawks were able to get that Pelicans pick. Because first, they're like, Pelicans, what are you doing? But secondly, you know, if Milwaukee or the Pelicans have a bad year, Hawks could easily be a lottery team again next year, could have a top 5 pick. And now you're still able to go get a really good young player and add them to what you have. Or you could use that as a trade asset. That ends up being a top 5 pick. That could be an asset in acquiring a big player, a star player. Because I've said the Hawks have very limited assets. And so the best thing they can do is add assets right now. And so to me, you know, this is the way they've kind of handled this offseason that has just started has been very impressive. I really, really like how they've just been able to come in here, have a plan, execute the plan, do the plan, and you're good to go. And so overall, you know, right now, how I feel is that you've clearly addressed size. They said we are not doing that again. We'll see if Larry Nance is coming back. Realistically, you have a place to bring him back now because he, again, will be the third center. Veteran guy, good veteran presence in the locker room, can shoot. All right. You got Gay, Asia, Jalen. You have a lot of size, athleticism, which makes sense for a team that wants to run. Add a lot of athleticism to that room. Run, make plays. I know some people were asking Porzingis is not really a rim runner. So Porzingis, I think, will help them more in the half court with pick and roll, pick and pop, where, you know, when Okongwu's on the floor, he can rim run and can help him pick and pop. So that'll be, you know, they can switch up styles of play, which I think is also very important, is to being able to, hey, can you play different ways? Because sometimes when you're a one-trick pony, a team that knows, well, if we can stop this, we pretty much know we got them. But if you can play in different ways, fast, slow, shooting, whatever, that can help increase your viability to win. So they've done that, right? You're hopeful. Again, you're still hopeful for jumps from Dyson Daniels, and you're hopeful from jumps from Zachary Richeche, right? So you want that. You obviously know backcourt is something you have to address. And even with that $25 million trade exception, they still also, I think, have a $14 million trade exception. So they could use both. Now, the expectation is some people don't think they're going to use both because they talked about, like, then you're getting up there in tax and stuff like that. And we'll see where it is. Because remember, they still have potential extensions for Dyson Daniels and Trae Young on the table. So the Hawks may be also trying to figure out, okay, we're trying to make these additions to the team, and we still got to extend these guys. And their extensions probably won't kick in until next year. So that's why having Kristaps Porzingis on a 1-year expiring deal could be key, because now if you extend those guys and their contracts kick in, you're getting also $31 million off the books. So that'll help with whatever, you know, you are trying to do. And listen, like, we don't know their plan. They may, after seeing Gay at some center minutes, may say, gives us another year to develop Gay. Maybe he can become the backup center. I don't know some people think they could still negotiate with Porzingis. Like that, like I think Porzingis is extension eligible with the Hawks in July. I forgot the day. So even though they haven't discussed it yet, doesn't mean that something is not on the table, or the Hawks could let it be a one, like, let's see what happens. And if Porzingis plays really well, or if the Hawks, you know, go on next year and win the NBA Finals or something, I would assume you're like, we're keeping Porzingis around, and then you get him on another short-term deal, and you kind of ride with that. So, you know, I think overall, I think a lot of people are happy about how the Hawks have maneuvered so far these last few days. I think a lot of people are very excited about the direction of this team. I think it's just more about putting it together. It's about putting it together, seeing how they continue to add to this. Like I said, free agency is going to begin. They're not done yet. I've seen them mention again the trade exceptions, like I've mentioned. They understand the Hawks have a lot here that they can work with and do. And so they're trying to just kind of figure out, okay, what is next for the Atlanta Hawks? What are the Hawks about to do? So it'll be interesting to kind of see what happens from that perspective. Obviously, I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on the draft, how they've maneuvered it, how they've maneuvered the first few days of the offseason, just your thoughts on all of that. I'm excited to see what's next. I'm excited to see what this team does. And I'm excited to know, that the Atlanta Hawks basketball seems to be pushing to win next year. So that's going to really up the expectations. But I think obviously they understand we had to choose a direction. They're picking a direction. So really excited about that. Before we go, I just want to make a quick comment about something. So Mike Bell from 92.9 tweeted out that I forgot who he had on, but he had somebody on from national media, right? And he said that he thinks the Hawks, that person said that they think the Hawks should trade Trae Young. And so here's my issue. Here's my issue with people who say that. First, it shows me you don't watch the team and you don't actually know what's going on in Atlanta. But second, think about what the Hawks have been doing. Think about it. Shooters, cutters, rim runners. What maximizes those types of players? An elite passing point guard. Let's think about what the Hawks have done. Dyson Daniels, Zachary Richiche, Jalen Johnson, Yucca Okongwu, Asa Newell, Kristaps Porzingis. What would help all those players be even more effective on the offensive end of the ball? An elite passing point guard. So when I hear that, this is what I think people are saying. I really like their core. I really like their group. But let's take that elite point guard who helps them thrive offensively and take him out of the equation, because I just don't think I think he needs to move on. I don't think he'll win in Atlanta. Okay, you do that. So what direction are the Hawks going in if that happens? Like, if we trade Trae Young, what's the direction? Like, what is the goal? Like, what are we like that's my issue with that. You trade him, what does that mean? like the Hawks, I feel like, are going to be too good to be like the worst team in the league, but at the same time not good enough to clearly compete. And you have all this nice young talent on your team, which people have said to me, oh, you just got to blow it up and trade everybody. I'm like, so you're going to trade young players for young players? That makes no sense to me. Why are we trading young players for young players? Like, that's why, like, literally, if you see the way the Hawks are building, they're building this team to fit Trae Young's strengths and to also help maximize his teammates' strengths. So why would you take the engine away from the team? Like, who is that helping? To me, it just sounds like it's stuff like that that's like you don't know what's going on. Because the thing about if you trade a star is that you can sometimes indicate through moves that, hey, we may be preparing to get rid of this guy. The Hawks have done nothing to show they're prepared to move on from Trae Young, nor do they seem prepared to move on from Trae Young. Salah done said that we're locked in with Trae next year. So again, why are we moving off of a guy who can help all of those players I named? Who's going to help them? Kobe Buffkin? Y'all hate him. So who? What are we trading him for exactly? Some picks? So we're just going to add more young, like, after a while, I love young talent, but guys, we got to be moving somewhere. Like, the way the Hawks are set, they have to move forward with Trae. They can't trade Trae. They have to move forward with him to see this through, to see if this works, to see if this is a formula. So when I just see comments like that, when people say that I'm seeing, oh, they're going to trade Trae Young by August. Why? And you know it's desperism, because every person has reported the Hawks have had no conversations with teams about Trae Young in terms of like serious conversations. No one has said that they're looking. No, like it just makes no sense to trade him with the type of team you have built around him that is very Trae Young dependent because of his skill set and his ability to maximize and make his teammates better. So why are you trading this man away? I just feel like that the national media always continues to show they don't watch the Hawks or they don't understand what they're seeing. They just think, well, Hawks were a playing team. We got to move Trae. But, like, if you know ball, you know what's going on, and you know what's happening. So that's just my 2 cents on that. But I digress. But I think that's about it for the show, guys. Like I said, I appreciate you guys tuning in for another episode. Hawks draft Asa Newell tonight with a 23rd pick in the trade they got with the Pelicans, picking up an unprotected first next year, potentially high-value pick for the team. He'll add to that front core that they've remade. I know Hawks fans are split. I'm open-minded. Let's see what he can do. Let's get him in the gym. Let's let him work with the trainers. Let him develop. I think this style of play will help him and work for him. And we'll see if he can shoot. Free agency is Sunday, so that'll be a big day. We'll see if the Hawks make any moves. The first couple of days of free agency, I'm very excited, very interested to see what they do. We'll see if Sule can continue to cook in the kitchen. And we'll be on top of it here on Believe in Hawks, man. I appreciate all y'all for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment down below. If you're listening through audio, please leave a 5-star rating for the show. Helps more people see and hear Believe in Hawks. So I really do appreciate all y'all for tuning in for another episode, and we'll see what happens, man. But that's about it for me. It's your boy Rice Lewis. See you next time.